Hello, everybody. Thank you for joining us. Those that we can see and the ones that we can't, we are still mastering the art of Zoom at this point. But rest assured, we've had a lot of interest in our event today, and for good reason. We have fabulous guests. My name is Lynn Aronoff. I am the Executive Director of Parent Advocates for Choice in Education, PACE, and I am thrilled to welcome everybody here. We are all about bringing parents together and sharing information about the options that are available for them in our state, which has pretty archaic laws, but we do have choice. We do have some choice and some interesting things going on here. So Andrew and Molly, thank you so much for agreeing to join us. I will hand things over to Amy, who is our phenomenal outreach director at PACE. And thank you very much. Go ahead, Amy.
Thanks, Lynn. I'm excited to be here today and to have our two panelists who have a wealth of knowledge when we're looking at school choice, the ideology of school choice and what it is and breaking it down for what we have in Michigan. So want to cover a couple things before we get started. First, if at any point you have any questions as we go along for our panelists, please go ahead and throw them in the chat pod and we will address those as they come up. And we'll also have a time at the end for Q&A for any of us that are sitting here on the panel today. I also know that many people are enticed by the $100 gift card drawing that is going on. So in order to be entered for that today, you have to head on over to mipace.org/membership and join our membership list for free. We don't send out a lot, but when we do send out, it's a recap of our events. It's the latest and greatest of what's happening in Michigan and just things that you need to know surrounding education in general. So I'm really excited today that we are going to have a series of lunch and learns. This is the first of that series to really focus on school choice. So we need to start with the overview, right? Like what is school choice? And that's where today we're bringing in Andrew and Molly. And then we're going to dive deeper. We're going to say, let's look at specifically brick and mortar charter schools. Let's look at virtual schools. Let's look at non-public schools. Let's look at homeschooling. Let's look at all of these different options that we have and talk to those professionals in that field to say, what does that look like? What does that mean? And why might parents and students be interested in that type? So without further ado, let's jump right in because we have again, a wealth of knowledge sitting in front of us today. So our first panelist today is Andrew Campanella, the CEO of the National School Choice Awareness Foundation, the nonprofit that organizes the National School Choice Week event each year, which, as we know in Michigan, continues to grow in size and diversity of the school types that we're able to get income support. So Andrew, welcome. Thank you for being here today.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it, Amy, and I'm looking forward to this.
So Andrew, I want to jump right in. Can you tell us a little bit about what is the National School Choice Week Awareness Foundation and sort of like how did you get involved in it and how have you seen it grown over the years?
Sure. So the National School Choice Awareness Foundation is a 501c3 nonprofit that operates 3 different charitable programs. The first is National School Choice Week, which happens every January. Last year, we worked with 26,000 schools, partnered with organizations to plan 65 large scale statewide events and generated media coverage for partners like PACE and so many others across the country in 115 out of 210 media markets across the country. Our second program is called SCW Navigate, and that is our online portfolio of school search resources for parents. And that's available on our website, schoolchoiceweek.com, serves more than 1 million families a year. And then finally, a new program that we launched in September called Conoce tus opciones escolares, which is available at opcionesescolares.com. That is our Spanish language school choice outreach program. So I've been involved in the School Choice Week charitable program for the last 1,000,000 years, the 14 years. And I got involved because I worked at other education nonprofits and really believe that school choice is the single most transformational education reform and catalytic reform that there can be to affect kids right now and into the future.
Oh, thank you. So you have literally been the provider of school choice information for a long time. You guys launched that beautiful addition to the website last, I believe it was October. And you continue to sort of lead and expand what you're able to offer for families. What made you get involved in the foundation, which you kind of just touched on, but what sort of keeps you going with this? And where do you sort of see the foundations going in the next 14 years?
So what got me involved in this specific work of school choice was experiences that I had as a volunteer in college when I was working with students in Washington, D.C., and discovered in working with them that so many of them did not have the educational experiences in their public schools that I had in my public schools growing up in New Jersey. And it opened my eyes to the fact that there are really two different worlds out there. Kids who have great experiences in schools or good experiences in schools, and then students for whatever reason. Sometimes it's that they go to a school that just doesn't meet their needs. Sometimes it's a school that's not serving a lot of kids well. And sometimes it's a school that there just isn't a connection between what the students' interests or needs are and what the school offers. I got lucky. I was in a school that worked for me. And as soon as I realized that there were kids out there who had a vastly different experience, that incentivized me to get involved in education. Where do I see the future of our work at National School Choice Awareness Foundation? We want to continue serving families. We want to serve more and more parents every year, because for so many families out there, school choice is not about policy. It's not about political rhetoric. It's not about controversy. It's not about a culture war. It is about finding an environment where your child is most likely to learn, thrive, succeed, and be happy. We want to help connect parents to all the environments out there: district schools, charter, magnet, private, online, homeschooling, and now non-traditional options too.
Awesome. So that sort of leads me into part of the way that you have provided information for parents is, I believe, and I might get my date wrong because my book's not in front of me, but I believe it was in January of 2020, correct, that your book came out. So you authored the School Choice Roadmap, 7 Steps to Finding the Right School for Your Child, which seriously, you guys, I normally have my book with me. I'm on the road today and I don't. If you do not have this book, you need to go get it, because it is laid out beautifully to fully understand what school choice is and how to navigate it. So Andrew, can you tell us a little bit about what the book is, kind of what inspired you to write it, and how folks can use it to best suit their navigation of choice?
Sure. So the book was written for parents, for moms and dads who want to choose a school for their child or want to consider homeschooling, virtual schooling, or non-traditional options, but are not sure exactly where to start and how to make choices in terms of what type of school is best. There's so much conflicting and outdated information out there. For example, so many parents would come to me at School Choice Week events and say, "This is exciting. Now I know I have an option, but where do I start? How do I start looking? And then how do I narrow down these choices? Should I just go based on things like a school's grade on great schools or a rating on niche?" And I would say to them, well, it's not as simple as that. You really need to consider what your child needs and what the school offers, and look at how those ratings and grades are actually calculated, because it's sometimes like rocket science to figure it out. And so I tried to write a book that would be applicable to any child, any family, in any circumstance, whether they've navigated choice in the past or not. No jargon, completely, hopefully, user-friendly, and designed to just walk you through 7 steps that will help you make this process easier. Because a lot of families, even though they're grateful to have choices, find the selection process to be stressful because there's all these competing pieces of information online about a school, information in the news, and then what their family and friends are telling them or almost guilting them into in some cases. So this will walk you through the options, and it's not designed to steer you in one direction. It's not designed to say, hey, you've got to find an alternative to your neighborhood school. The option is out there for you to make that decision because you know your child better than anyone else.
Love that. So what advice would you give families, and you just offered a lot of it up there, who are looking to find the right fit? I know that there's other resources aside from your book. I know this year for National School Choice Week, you guys provided us with some documents that parents could actually take with them to the schools to fill out as they were going through. So what would you tell parents who are still like, oh, I'm so uptight about this. I can't figure out what to do. Where do I start? Just help. Well, what's the advice there?
So the first thing I would say is this, and it sounds a little counterintuitive, but it's like, don't think about the schools, think about your child. And, a lot of people dive into the process and they think about, well, I've got 5 schools to look at or 4 schools to look at, and I need to go on tours. And yeah, you need to do all those things. But the first thing you need to really do is take a step back and identify what your goals are for your child and what you're looking for, what you need, want, and like to have in an education environment. And the book doesn't just say, hey, think about what you need. It asks some specific questions that you can answer and has some worksheets. And if you don't want to go buy the book, all the worksheets are available for free on our website, schoolchoiceweek.com. So my first recommendation is zoom out before you zoom in.
I love that. So anything else you want to add at this point in our conversation? Do you think it's just important for parents for her to know about the broader thoughts of school choice?
Sure. All I'll say is before we start listening to other folks and their experiences and what they're working on, is that we've seen just an incredible year for school choice across the country. I know that in Michigan, families are fighting to make sure that their kids can stay in the schools their families have chosen for them, especially virtual school families. And I want to remind moms and dads that your voice matters and to have your voice heard, because there's so many kids who are well served and just would struggle mightily if they didn't have a virtual schooling option. And I am with all of you in your fight to keep these options available for parents all across your state.
Thanks, Andrew. Molly, we're going to jump over to you. So our next panelist is Molly Macek. She's the Director of Education Policy for the Mackinac Center. So thanks for joining us, Molly.
Thanks so much for having me.
So I know some people might say, like, what does that even mean to be a policy director? So can you tell us a little bit about what is your role at the Mackinac Center and sort of your background in education? Because I think that's a twofold, goes together very well.
Yeah, so I'm actually quite new at the Mackinac Center and fairly new to this policy space, but I bring to this role my background in education. So I am an educator by training. I started off in a public school and then spent the majority of my career in private schools as a teacher, department chair, and then eventually as a principal, most recently for a high school at a private school. So, and I did that through COVID. So have lots of, firsthand experience there. So now in my current role as the education policy director, I'm able to take that experience, that background, and apply that towards trying to improve the state of education in Michigan, to empower parents, to promote school choice policy and other education reform that will improve these options for Michigan families. So it is such a pleasure to be able to work in this space, a very exciting place to be right now.
Awesome. Well, I think, and this is not on my script or my agenda because it was live this morning, I think I saw some great quotes in an article from you just this morning speaking to the equities in education. So appreciate your voice there for sure.
Sure.
So what are we seeing then? I guess speaking of the article as well, like what are you seeing in Michigan in terms of educational choice options and sort of where do you see the state heading?
Yeah, so I mean, it's been a little bit of a rough road for Michigan, but at the same time, I think there is a lot of opportunity here, and it's actually an exciting time. Just going back a few years and during COVID, there were several pieces of legislation that were introduced. It was quite discouraging that those were not passed, that legislation that would have given families more power, more say in how their children were educated and would have provided funding to them for efforts such as tutoring and other efforts to recover learning losses that happened a lot during the pandemic. So it's been a little bit of a rough road, but since the pandemic and even before then, we have really seen this emergence of different options becoming available, and a lot of non-traditional options, like Andrew mentioned, are available now. So we have the homeschooling options, and in fact, I'm not sure if you saw this article, it was a Forbes one written by Carrie McDonald that was just released today. It's the 30th anniversary of a Michigan Supreme Court ruling that secured homeschooling rights for parents in Michigan. So it's a big day today, very important anniversary. So thanks to rulings like that and various legislation that has passed over the years, we are able to offer a variety of choices that are growing. And we're seeing more virtual options, hybrid options. We're seeing families and education entrepreneurs getting really creative with what they have access to as far as entrepreneurs, establishing these alternative learning models that support homeschooling families, support families that need more flexible, personalized learning options that will better meet their children's unique learning needs. So this is a time of opportunity. Our support within the parent community continues to grow, continues to demand more diversity of options, and we're seeing entrepreneurs and other schools and founders really rising to the occasion and making these options available.
Awesome. Lynn, did you have something to add in? I saw the hand
I
go up.
did. I had to put my hand up because everything Molly's talking about is so interesting. We're very much of the opinion at PACE that there are these really interesting, creative things going on the ground in a place like Michigan that has pretty backwards laws about education choice. There are incredible stories happening, and just incredible innovation and creativity. And it's our mission, in another segment of our plan for PACE, that we are doing a series of campus visits and to show parents what those options are as we uncover them ourselves. We have an upcoming one in the beginning of June at MIAT, which is an engineering aviation school in Canton, Michigan. And we're going to do another campus tour of Associated Builders and Contractors, their SEMCA construction school. So we're looking all over, and we just in the last event that we did, we highlighted a boat building school, Nikki Story's school in northern Michigan. So we love those stories, and we are looking for those stories. So if anybody has those stories, please send them to us. We want to investigate, we want to go there, and we want to bring families there with us to come and see it. But I did want to touch on something that I know I'm sitting in Lansing right now, so I could be accused of having sort of a too high level view of, what's going on. But when you talk about, Molly, this important second year anniversary, so what's the importance of the homeschool legislation? What was actually codified in that legislation, just for our parents? What changed?
Well, prior to the legislation, there were restrictions on being able to teach your children at home, that, parents were accused of truancy, of, they were breaking the law by not sending their kids to school. So through this ruling, it recognized homeschooling as a viable option, no longer breaking the law by keeping your kids at home and teaching them in a way that you felt was best. And also in Michigan, we don't have, some states have more restrictions, but we don't have those requirements to report. So very few regulations that parents need to navigate, which is really nice. So that's something that at the Mackinac Center, among our other priorities, we strive to protect our existing school choice options, including those homeschool freedoms that we're so fortunate to have, and also encourage greater education freedom all around.
Well, the other thing that I really found interesting is that you talk about your parent community growing, and that's, the business that we're in at PACE is bringing together the families, the parents, the decision makers for these kids, and getting their stories, so that, what we know from all the research that we've seen is that the only way to convince somebody who isn't already pro school choice to be pro school choice is from the mouths of the families. It isn't those of us that work in it that have dedicated our lives to it, but the personal stories are really where it's at. I can talk about school choice and all of that forever, but when I bring it down to, my kid did school choice, he's in a public school, but it's a town over, and it's the better fit for him, and it's really important that I get to make that decision. How are the ways that the Mackinac Center's parent engagement is growing, and can you speak to why? I guess tell us why you think it's important to have the parent engagement.
Yeah, absolutely. So we do have community engagement is a really important part of what we do, but it's like you say, it's those parent stories that are so powerful, and they are the ones that we believe that they know their kids best, and that they need to be empowered in the education of their children. So finding different ways to engage with parents and other community members so that we can better understand what their needs are and how we can better support them is super important. In regards to some of these alternative models, if I can give a shout out to, I noticed that Bernita Bradley is on is one of our members joining us today, and she is just a rock star. And I had the absolute privilege of meeting her and seeing her school that she founded, Engage Detroit, which is there to support families in the community, support homeschooling families, connect them with resources, connect them with other parents who are serve as coaches and are experienced in homeschooling their kids. But some of the best stories that I learned, of course, came from parents that she had invited to chat with me, and to just it's inspirational. It really is, and to hear how they are supporting one another, how these organizations and these non-traditional schools such as Engage Detroit are serving their communities is it's really powerful, very inspiring. But yeah, I have found that hearing the stories straight from the parents is kind of very reaffirming, that this is important work for the residents of our state. And it also helps us to understand, talking to parents and also school leaders, school founders, helps us to understand what are some of the barriers that they encounter in trying to start up or expand or scale their learning models, so that at the Mackinac Center, we can better understand those barriers and then try to develop creative policy solutions that can help them to overcome those challenges and to expand options for Michigan residents.
Thank you. And I just want to say that Bernita put in the chat that it's her pleasure to do the work. It's clearly your pleasure, Bernita, because you're phenomenal at it. And we are all incredible. Those of us who know you know. That's all I can say. It's the incredible work. And it's interesting that the problems that her parents have are a little bit different than other homeschooling parents. The issues in her community are a little bit different, and all of that, the subtleties and the differences are really important, and that's another thing that we want to continue to be a place to showcase those stories and all their intricacies. But yeah, it is incredibly life affirming to meet somebody like Bernita and to meet you and to meet Andrew, the people really doing the work in these areas. It's incredibly moving for me every day. I'll shut up now, Amy. It's your event. Go ahead.
And I agree with everything that you're saying. It is true. And and I think too, is when we talk about these parent stories, I know for me personally, like that's what keeps me going in the fight. Because there's days where I think any of us sitting in this room today could attest to, like, there are days where you're ready to throw in the towel. It's exhausting. You've hit the end of the rope, it feels like. And then you hear another student or parent story and you rejuvenate and you keep going because they deserve it, right? Every child deserves a good education. Every parent deserves to pick that best education. And so for me personally, the parent stories keep me going in the fight. So I appreciate that. So Molly, to get back on track here, I guess, what would you, like, if parents are looking for more information specifically on what choices Michigan has to offer, or even trying to navigate through the different, options, where would you suggest that they might look, or where could they find some resources?
So, if they are just interested in a more of a big picture understanding of what Michigan has to offer, they can go to the Michigan Department of Education website. It actually has some good resources there on the different types of options that are available, and some of the different laws that are in place regarding those, and even resources for homeschoolers and whatnot. One of the best ways for them to really understand what is offered in their communities is, I would think, through talking to other parents in their communities. Oftentimes word of mouth is the best way to learn about the different options. I know that there are a lot of Facebook groups out there, so through social media to learn that way. So yeah, there are some resources online, certainly, but yeah, I would say get engaged in your community and talk to other parents, find out what other options they might be taking advantage of.
Awesome. Thank you for that. I saw Andrew just dropped in the chat pod too. National School Choice Week, their website has a specific guide for every state. It's a beautiful thing. And when you get on there, and Andrew, maybe I shouldn't steal your thunder. I could let you just talk about this, but it literally lays out for you what options are in each state and then breaks it down. And then you can even look up, for instance, if I want to see what virtual schools are in Michigan, you go in there and it drops that list. So I don't, Andrew, if you want to add on, but it's a beautiful thing.
Thank you very much. So what we decided to do during COVID and have continued is to develop these state level roadmaps to school choice. It's sort of a play on the name of my book, but is designed to be a completely free resource for parents. And there is one for Michigan, as well as every other state, in English and in Spanish. And so the goal is, if you want to choose a different school, whether it's through open enrollment in a different district, charter, virtual, if you want to choose a private school, and in Michigan, find a privately funded scholarship, all of that information is on one page of our site for your state, and you can just go through it and navigate it. And we update these continuously, and it's not just information that we pull off the internet. We call state departments of education. We talk with individual schools about how they interact with these different policies to make sure the information we're giving to parents is accurate. And we develop special guides that have state features in them. For example, we're developing a guide now for English language learners. We recently launched a guide for Native American students. We have a guide for students with disabilities and special needs, a variety of different ultimate guides. So it's all on our site, which we will be relaunching with a brand new site in the next few weeks.
Nice. That's so exciting. I can't wait to see. So can kind of throw it up at both of you here. Molly, I'm going to start with you. If parents and students are interested in getting more involved with advocacy and speaking about their experiences, what would you suggest that they do, or how should they go about doing that?
Well, I would encourage them to, consider speaking at local school board meetings. Make sure their voices are heard. They can engage with their lawmakers, and I would encourage them to do that. Whether they want to express concerns that they have, what their needs are, what they would like to see happen, but also to share their success stories. Our lawmakers need to know that. So whether you are, attend a charter school, a Catholic school, other secular private schools, hybrid, homeschooling, you name it, they want to know what your positive experiences are so they can better support those options. So engaging with your lawmaker and following what legislation is being introduced pertaining to school choice, so that they can also speak out if they are finding legislation that they are concerned with or that would hinder our efforts towards education freedom.
Awesome. Andrew, anything to add to that?
I think what Molly said is exactly right. And I would underscore the importance of positivity. I think that when people think about advocacy, sometimes they think about and having their voice heard, they think about going and being angry or going and being mad about something. But sometimes the most effective advocacy and the most disarming advocacy that actually persuades people is to come in with a positive experience or an aspiration and what you hope for your child. It's not necessarily to complain about everything you're not happy about, but it's to say, here's what I'd like, or here's how my child could benefit, or here's how my child did benefit, and look at where they are now. Those types of stories are the persuasive ones, the ones that will get people who don't agree with you to possibly change their mind and go onto your side. Complaining definitely has a place, but what you're going to do there is you're just going to rally the folks who are already in support of you. So there are two different types of advocacy, and I just want to make sure that people understand that you have to do the positive stuff too. And I think that's exactly what Molly was saying, so I wanted to underline it.
Yes, I agree. Well, we want to open up for questions, or if you two have anything else that you sort of want to add into the conversation, or Lynn, you usually have some thoughts going, but want to open up for questions, comments, anything else you guys want to add in as we begin to wrap up?
Well, I can say that one of our missions at PACE, along, many streams that lead to our mission, is to make it easier for parents to find out about the different options in Michigan. But Andrew, you're doing the work for us, so we're just going to link to your stuff because you make it easy, and
And we'll give you some content you can use as well, because we're going to be licensing content for free to organizations just like yours for this purpose. So, and we can partner with you on similar resources in the future. We can talk offline.
Yeah, no, that is wonderful, because we're all going towards the same thing. And when you're a parent and you have a million things pulling at you, and a million things going, figuring out what are the options should be easy. And also just really wonderful advice from both of you about how to advocate. As we go down the road with this organization, a very important part of it is to help parents learn how to advocate to their legislators. And it's really sharing information like what you just shared about bringing the positive, telling them what's worked for your kid, and why that option was so important for you. It's also important to tell the stories about your kid is stuck and you can't get them out, and what are you supposed to do here? But coupling it with the positive changes is so important in breaking that down for people, because legislators want to be reelected and these are their constituents. And so they should be scared of meeting with our families and not the other way around. And so a part of our mission is to break that down. And I really appreciate the very nuts and bolts way of going with this kind of story, not that story, because this stuff doesn't have to be difficult. Taking the step forward for your kid should be the hardest part. And that's something we all do pretty easily as parents. So, and grandparents and guardians and interested parties, we take on that role, but to actually be able to transform it into something that is ultimately the most useful version of what you're doing and the most effective version is really important. And we believe that bringing the parents together so their voices are heard collectively is really important, so that when we're trying to get legislator A to not consider cutting funding for virtual charter schools, which is a very real example in this state, having the stories from people who have benefited from the virtual charter schools and being able to join them together so that it isn't just one story landing in the state representative's email box. It's 10, 20 stories of people, their voters whose families have been transformed in a positive direction by school choice. So I want to thank you all. That was my summarizing everything you're saying, but everything you both are talking about are things that we believe so strongly in, the voices of the parents. That's really the only thing that should matter. The other adults don't matter. Mm-hmm. Just the parents, just the ones who are keeping charge of the kids.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, I want to give one more chance for questions, but Andrew and Molly, I can't thank you guys enough for being here. You're both just a wealth of knowledge. And again, you guys go check out School Choice Week, check out the Mackinac Center, check out Andrew's book and the resources there. Make sure, again, if you want to be in that drawing, head on over to mipace.org/membership and join our newsletter list. And then I'm excited to announce that our very next Lunch and Learn, where we're going to be focusing on brick and mortar charters, will take place Wednesday, June 8th. So mark your calendars and watch for the invite to come out on our Facebook page. And we're looking forward to continuing the school choice conversation. So again, Andrew and Molly, thank you guys so much. Always a pleasure with both of you to get to be in the same room, virtually or not, and to get to hear your ideas and your thoughts, because they always are innovative and get me going and fueled up again. So appreciate you, and everybody have a great Thursday, and we'll look forward to our next Lunch and Learn here in just a few short weeks.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Amy, Lynn, and Molly, and everyone who joined. Thanks.
Mm-hmm.